Hello everybody, my name's Lisa D'Amico. I'll be introducing the speakers this afternoon. I hope you've all had a great lunch and are ready to rock and roll for the next session. So I'd like to introduce today Anya Anderson from Red Seed, and she's the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder. A little bit about Anya. In 2009, Anya and her co-founders saw an opportunity to use video-based online training to improve learning outcomes. Working with well-known Australasian businesses over the last 12 years, she and her team have gained huge insights into developing video-based e-learning that works and produces tangible results for the learner and the business they work for. She has a passion for using training to allow people to successfully to be successful and reach their full potential, and has developed one of a few platforms that have an integrated coaching functionality. Their vision is to unlock the potential in people through training that changes behaviour. Please, let's all welcome Anya to the stage.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, afternoon everyone. Okay, so we've got the next 20 minutes to talk about the coach learning advantage, and I am going to concentrate particularly on these three areas. So how to get your team to competence more quickly, how to get better ROI from your learning, and how to give your customers a fantastic experience. Just a little bit before we get started on coach learning, just a comment about the current environment. And as you would have heard this morning, trade is a little bit flat out in retail at the moment. So a lot of companies are being asked to do a lot more with less. And one of the obvious places to do that is to cut headcount. It's a big line item on everybody's P&L. And so you often reduce the people on your floor. What I want to talk about a little bit this afternoon is how you get a better performance out of those people on the floor, and you change your perspective of your human capital from being a cost to a profit earner. Part of that is about concentrating on revenue earning behaviour. So you want to make sure that everybody on your floor is concentrating on bringing dollars in to the till. And one of the ways that we know that you can do that is to change your managers into coaches and leverage them in the store with your team to create an elevated performance for your customers. Okay, so in the room, is there anybody here that's experienced coaching in their life, either through sports coaching, life coaching, business coaching? Yeah. You guys are very privileged because not everybody gets the opportunity to be coached in their life. So the thing that you will be thinking now, you will all have a really different perception of what is coaching. In this particular environment, I really want to talk about coaching in terms of skill acquisition, but all of you here will know that coaching is an accelerated learning model. It does help you get better more quickly, and it does help you get further along the skill acquisition curve than you would have got if you'd just been left to your own devices, right? So as I said, focused on skill acquisition, really, really important. Helps your team members acquire the competencies they need to be really, really successful in your environment. And that's where we want to concentrate our energy. It does require this kind of underpinning philosophy of turning all of your managers into coaches. Now, I'm not talking about you utilising coaches from external to your environment and paying for a whole, logistically impossible, right? If you've got thousands of team members, yes, we see coaching being used often for organisations at the really top level, and you guys probably are in that privileged group. But most organisations rely on a kind of trickle-down effect. They forget to think about the evaporation in that model, and most of it doesn't actually get to the bottom line. So when we talk to companies and they say, oh yeah, we've got a coaching model, we're a coaching organisation, how does that play out at the front line, and how does that play out for your customers? Probably not really getting there. So how do you create an environment? How can you create and utilise a system that actually utilises the resources that you already have in your organisation, be it your managers, turn them into coaches and get a top-line performance out of that? So we're talking about creating an environment where it's very scalable and internal. What does that look like? So there's a whole lot of components. To get coaching to work in your environment and give you an elevated experience, it's kind of like an engine, right? You need to have all the parts. You can't just have one part of that model. You can't just have learning. Okay? You need to be able to create a system where you have coaching embedded in the learning, and that's kind of the trigger point. Now, it doesn't have to be online, it can be face-to-face, but that's a trigger for a system that gives you an outcome. So you have coach learning, you have the prompting happening and the notifications. You encourage this interaction between the coach, and remember that person is typically the store manager. It can also be the assistant manager or a senior level person inside the store, and it also pushes up further into the organisation. But if that person then is doing the interaction with that team member, typically face-to-face, discussion, practicing skills, super important, particularly for adults, and also at times verification. So verifying that they can do the behaviour with your customers, then that's the key to this system working. We're talking about 10 minutes per person per week. We're not talking about these big kind of off the floor in the back room coaching sessions that you need to plan. This is designed to kind of be in between customers and to work in a frontline retail environment. So our goal is an elevated performance, and our real focus is changing the behaviour of your team. Now, I know that lots of you will have learning. In fact, probably everyone in this room has learning in their organisation. And knowledge is kind of one thing, but as adults, we're very bad at transitioning that knowledge into action. Okay, so we need to really focus on this kind of transition, getting over this inertia hurdle that adults have from knowledge to action, and transitioning those new skills into the workplace so that they're actually utilising them day to day with your customers in the store. It's kind of like the holy grail of training, right? Everyone's like, oh yeah, we have training. How do you measure the return on the success of your training? Oh, we've had 1,000 completions. It's awesome. We've had heaps of people complete it. But if nothing ever changes, if you don't change the results that you get from training, what is the point? So you need to be doing things that change behaviour. And to do that, you need to be able to create this environment of learning. We don't want to be creating learning events that, yep, done it, took a few hours, put somebody on the training, and tick, done. Senior management is very happy, board is very happy, and away we go on to the next thing. You need to be creating this culture of learning and iterative, elevated experiences in the whole organisation. Okay, so a lot of you will this will be a familiar kind of model to you. It was developed by two brothers out of Berkeley University in 1986, and it talks about skill acquisition. So we know that when we learn a new skill, we all go through these kind of 5 phases of skill development, starting as a novice. So when we go to learn something new, we don't know anything about it, we're a novice. We typically learn pretty quickly. The first 20 hours are pretty important. So we know that we can go from kind of not very good at something to half decent in about 20 hours of practice. And that gets us up to a level of competence. Now, how long that takes depends on the complexity of the skill. But we also know that to move through these other phases of skill development takes a lot longer. So how many people are familiar with Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours? Yep, yep. So we know that to become a master or an expert in something, it's going to take a long, long time to develop those skills. In this first phase, we know that you need kind of a recipe. Okay? When you know nothing about a skill, it's really useful to have some sort of methodology and some sort of, as I say, a recipe for learning that new skill. As we get better, we can become more fluid and more creative in the way that we utilise those skills. But certainly in the beginning, you can't use, initiative because you have no idea how to get started. And so that talks to how you might develop learning in your organisation as well. You need to assume that most people are a novice in the skill that you're teaching. And so methodology is really, really important. If we look at this model, it's about a training event, and you'll all be familiar with this. So green is a training event, whether it's online or whether it's face-to-face. The top line, the white line, is behaviour, and the red line at the bottom is the results. So you'll see that with a training event, our behaviour changes, and that's quite rewarding, particularly if you're in the space of doing training. But you'll see that post the event, our performance dips, our results dip. Got any golfers or swimmers, racket sports players in the room? No? None. Okay, excellent. No time to do that. But if you have, if there's something that you do and you know that you've tried to alter it, so you've tried to alter your technique, you'll typically know that your performance dips. Okay, it feels really awkward, it's really uncomfortable. It's bad because if you're a golfer, your ball goes in all sorts of directions. If you're swimming, your swim time goes down. So typically as adults, we go, well, that's kind of not very nice place to be. I think I'll just change back to the way I was because that was way more comfortable. My results will go up again, happy days, and we're back to where we were, results and behaviour, pre the training event. Anybody experienced that? Anybody seen it in their team? Yep. Okay, what happens with coaching? The opposite happens. As you guys are probably aware, because all of you are in a position where you are getting coaching, so you will know this model intuitively works, right? Do the training event, same thing happens. Behaviour changes, our results dip, but when you get support, you continue to keep giving it a go. You might have a bad event, right? You might have an interaction with a customer, it doesn't go so well. So typically you will revert to your old behaviour. With a coach, they get you over that hurdle. So they get you re-motivated, they make you more resilient. They help you be persistent to try and evolve your skills. And this is not, one-on-one coaching where they're there every minute of the day. This is kind of thinking about, okay, they're going to touch base with me about 10 minutes a week. They're probably going to watch some of my interactions. They'll give me a little bit of feedback on the fly. Anybody go to the gym? There's no golfers, no swimmers, okay, there's a few people that go to the gym, right? Anybody have a PT? Yep. Okay, so you guys know what this is like, right? You buy the gym membership because you want to get healthy, you want to get fit. That doesn't make you go. Okay, yeah. See, these guys know. So then you might say, well, I'm going to go to a class because it's a little bit more motivating because there's a few people there and it's a set time and that'll kind of help me get there. That's pretty good. But if you've got a personal trainer, you're probably paying them a little bit more. So that's a motivator. But they personalise the experience for you and they can adapt your program and they can give you the type of motivation you need to get better more quickly. Okay? There's a lot of power in a coach. In saying that, when we have onboarding programs, this is kind of what we imagine goes on in our head. We think that our onboarding program is amazing, our store managers are amazing, they're going to be in charge of onboarding our new team members in a typical time frame that we would onboard somebody maybe 4 to 6 weeks. They don't have a budget over that time, we know they're going to be ramping. We hope they get to competence. That would be great. This is the ideal model, right? Actually, what happens is that a lot of them in 4 weeks don't get there. They become an advanced beginner. And that's okay if they continue to get better, but that's what usually happens because the person that's training them and helping them get started has other things to do on their day-to-day, in their day-to-day job, and they can't be there past that point. So it's over to you now. You've got a budget. You've got to do the job that we hired you for. Good luck. And that's kind of where my help as your coach or your manager kind of stops. So we know that this forgetting curve happens really quickly, but with support and with a coach, we know that they will continue to get better. So they might take a little bit longer, but the curve is still the same. So we're still wanting them to get a lot further along this curve because that's where we're going to get this elevated performance. If we look at the numbers associated with that, and this is very rudimentary maths, so apologies for this, but if you hire somebody today and you pay them $25 an hour to have them on your floor, you have them out there for 8 hours, brand new, don't know anything about the product, don't know your policy, don't know your procedure, they don't bring in anything today, you pay them $200, okay, as a novice. As you get them up to competence, assuming that you're working on a 20% margin, they sell $1,000 for you today, 800 of that goes to cost of goods, 200 is your margin, you're already paying them 200, you're at break even. Happy days, kinda. You get some other benefits, you know, maybe they stop the thieves coming in your store and ripping off your product. Maybe they don't. But what we're looking for is a better performance than that. And if you don't have a mechanism in your business for elevating that performance and getting them to a higher level of performance, then you're missing out on revenue. And if you can get them further along that curve, then they're going to start to return 200, 400 more each day. And that means that you can start looking at your human capital in a different way inside your business. You can say, instead of that person being a pure cost, they're actually now a revenue earner. So in tough times, why would I take that person off the floor? Why would I not double down on that person who can increase my revenue and keep putting them, it's obviously diminishing returns. You've got to have enough customers coming through the door and they've got to be on the floor at the right time. But if you've got 50 customers in store and you've only got 2 people there, you're not maximising your opportunities. Okay, if we look at this as a different little model. So we say that when you hire somebody, they're at C, right? They can kind of return 30% of what you want them to return when they get up to competence in your business. At A, that's kind of what you would expect somebody to return for you every week on your floor. Yes, I know you're going to have some top performers, poor performers, etc., but on average, that's what you need them to return. B is the time it takes to get them up to competency. Now, in front of you, you have a red booklet. If you open that up, on the inside is an ROI calculator that I'm just going to take you through now. If you know the numbers in your business, you can follow along. Otherwise, hold on to it and fill them in when you get back to work. But this is the first part that we're really interested in, right? We know that with coaching, we can reduce the time to competency by about 25%. 25 minutes wouldn't be quite enough. Okay, so 25%. So what we're looking at here is trying to understand what is this wedge worth to us if we can reduce time to competency. I've put some numbers in here just to work it through for you in case you don't know what yours are, but if we say the sales at competency are $8,000, so that person's going to return around the $8,000 a week for you once they can do the job, and it takes them 4 weeks to get up to that point. If we start them off on day 1 at 30%, So they're returning around 2,400. And then we know that we can reduce the time to competency by 25%, so we go down to 3 weeks. We're looking at a difference in sales of 5,600 and 1 week's savings. Now that wedge was a triangle, so basic mathematics, you have to divide that area by 2 for a triangle. So we have divided it by 2 and we get $2,800 that we can make of each new hire if we can get them up to speed in 3 weeks instead of 4. If you hire 100 people a year, that's a saving, or actually you're making $280,000 more. Anybody hire more than 100 people a year? Nobody's going to say. Yeah. There'll be some pretty big numbers out there. So that wedge is just the very beginning of the story with coach learning. We know that really what comes into its own is this big blue wedge. That's the lift you can get as you take people in your organisation further along that skill acquisition curve and have them perform at a much higher level. So while G might return some dollars to you, the big noise is in this blue wedge. And I'm actually doing a webinar in April on this blue wedge and how we calculate that using an ROI calculator, which is a little more sophisticated than the maths I've talked to you today about. So jump online and register it on our website. But when we do the calculations and we keep plugging the numbers in, we know that this wedge returns around 200% in terms of ROI. So for every dollar that you're putting into coaching, you're getting 3 back. And if you apply that, not just to the people that you're bringing on board every year, but the team that are existing, that's a phenomenal lift. And we've seen that coaching deliver that lift for some of our customers. If we look at this data, this is actually a meta-study, so it's looking at a whole bunch of studies around coaching and manager-led coaching. What we know is that if you encourage people in your organisation, your managers, to coach, then you'll get around about a 10% lift in performance. If you teach those people the skills of coaching, what is coaching? How do I coach? How do I coach different personalities? How do I coach on the retail floor? How do I coach for lift? And you also teach your team to be coachable, we know that you can get an 18% lift. But that number at 41%, that increase in performance from your team through 3 things: encouraging your managers to coach, teaching them the skills of coaching, and also making sure that they've covered the skills that they're going to be coaching their team on. So remember, this is a skill acquisition model. They need to be good at the skills, or at least understand the mechanics of the skills that they're coaching. If you can get that happening in your organisation, then you can get a huge lift in performance. But coaching is a model that you have to continually work with, because it's not event-based. You can't just coach and then walk away, right? It's like going to the gym. You can't go one time. Although some of us do go one time. You've got to keep going. And you can't go for a year and feel great and then go, well, I'm done now. It doesn't work like that. So this is the same type of model. What other ROI and outcomes can we look for? We are definitely looking at increased sales, obviously, increased competence, decreased risk. So when we're looking for compliance, particularly around health and safety and some other aspects in the business, then we can definitely see those gains. Increase in churn or turnover of staff, because you keep your top performers and you can identify your poor performers. Increase in NPS, that's both internal and external. Your customers definitely benefit from interacting with a team that's being coached. We get increased confidence from the team, improved culture, and very importantly, happiness and elevated performance. So Teams that are happy definitely produce better results. They stay with you, they're more loyal. The cost of replacing somebody is around 30% of their salary. And I know that doesn't appear on your P&L. Luckily for some people it doesn't appear on the P&L, but it's a massive cost to your business. When you reduce the number of people on your floor, you actually put all of that operational workload back on the team that are still there. They're less focused on your customers than they were when you had a full team on the floor. You certainly can't deal with some of the things like shoplifting. So you do have some real downsides to, I know it looks good on the P&L and somebody's usually banging the drum, but the long-term effect of that is pretty damaging to your business. What are some of the other soft benefits? You guys will all know these things. We do get self-confidence from being trained and having engagement with our manager, improve relationships, which is the whole trust mechanism. And the development, don't forget that, and people have talked about AI, and we hear this in the market quite often, what about using AI for coaching? Well, it is one aspect of that, but then you forget the development for a manager in the area of coaching is something they will miss out on if you don't utilise them and you're using a digital option instead. And that's a huge component to the success of the organisation. So we're looking at improved teamwork, communication, job satisfaction, productivity. All of these things are demonstrated really, really clearly in the evidence-based studies that we see. So out of today, what do you need to remember? 3 key things. You do need to look for a learning model that changes behaviour, not just knowledge-driven. And as I said, it is like the holy grail of learning. But there is no point unless the behaviour changes and the outcomes change. Focus your people, particularly in tough times, on revenue-earning activities. It's great getting the store, you've got to get the store ready, it's got to be clean, it's got to be tidy, the product's got to be on the floor, but you need to be interacting with customers, and they are looking for an interaction with the team in store. If they don't want a human-to-human interaction, they're going to buy from you online. When they go in store, they have a certain expectation, and as humans we connect and we're looking for connectivity. And use your managers, a resource that you already have and already pay for, in a better way that you can get a higher performance out of both them and their team, and therefore your organisation. So build that culture of excellence where people want to work for you, enjoy it, and perform at a high level. All right, that is it. And I think we're going into a panel session.
Thank you.
You've got intros to do for
Yeah, I'm
everyone
going to do
else.
intros, yeah. All right, well, thank you there, Anya.